very good evening and welcome to Eswatini TV's 8 p.m. news broadcast. My name is Nondobego Ntsapkelwago. Let's take a look at tonight's headlines. The Matapa Evangelical Church has donated medical supplies and groceries to Eswatini Hospice at Home. Prime Minister Ambrose Dlamini says government, with the assistance of Parliament, will ensure that senior citizens who need shelter are afforded such. Former Minister of Public Works and Transport Ntuthuko Dlamini has handed himself over to the police after allegedly shooting 3 men. And now for the news. The Matapa Evangelical Church has donated medical supplies and groceries to Eswatini Hospice at Home. The donation was received by Busisiwe Ndlela on behalf of the patron Inkosikati Magengangaza during a church service which marked the donation ceremony at the organization's premises in Matapa.
The medical supplies and food items amounting to 30,000 malangeni were presented by the chairman of the Matapa Evangelical Church Board, President Dlamini.
Silibandla ke leVangelical Matapa silandzela netimfundiso tebacambi baleli bandla. Kwakukhona Miss Mo lo hamba embili ekucambeni libandla lase Evangelical. Libandla levangeli kuthiwa abe hamba abuka abantu tindo labatidzingako kuhlangabetana naletidzingo tabo kulesinye isikhathi abeze asale nalokula kwembethe emtimbeni solo aphe bantu basi nasebafikile la kuye afunele kwathi lokho ukuthi bahamba nje nasebakuthethe lokulaba kudzingile sebavumile yini ukuthi bayamthanza Jesu.
Busisiwe Ndlela received the donation on behalf of the patron Inkosikati Magengangaza.
Ngekuthi uyinkosikazi bazalwane bebandla levangeli uthema ke asendlulise kumbongela kakhulu wasuke yamthobisa imihla nemalanga onke uma kwendeka athi uhleli eve ukuthi sekunebantu labachuchwa ngumoya waNkulunkulu kutonikela kuleli khaya leli uthe uyadibongela endlule abongele live leMaswati lonke kuthi la even kusenebantu benhlitiyo yaNkulunkulu labatsinzekako ukuthi bende babe sandla sakhe uNkulunkulu wendlula wathi ubongela ngisho emakhosi liqobo lokuthi kulesive sakhe kunebantu labasamthanza uNkulunkulu ngalendlela.
The director of Eswatini Hospice at Home, Zodwa Kamedze, noted that the donation will encourage medical workers to continue to work with diligence.
Lokulenisipha kona kuyengeda emandleni abo ekusebenta kuyengeda enjabulweni yabo ekubasita abantu kuphindze kubanikete isibinzi sekwati ukuthi asisodwa sithi sebendi talenhlangano.
Dr. Nicholas Nyawo, the pastor of the church, assured Inkosikati that the church will now be making yearly donations to the organization.
Siyalibonga lethuba siyalemukela ukuthi njalo ngabo September sitawuba khona la kutoti mbanzakanya nemsebenzi wekunakekela labo labadzingile.
Another key moment of the event was when Dr. Soneni Nyawo laid bare all the good works of Inkosikati Magengangaza.
Her Royal Highness has that calling. She belongs to a Maswati. As for her heart, she entirely belongs to the heart of Jesus. As a church, siyafisa ku-acknowledge lenhlitiyo yegolide lekhona Her Royal Highness Magenkosikati Langangaza yekusita abantu.
On the news, I am Sandile Makanya reporting with Themba Mamba in Matapa.
The Prime Minister, Ambrose Dlamini, says government and Parliament will continue to ensure that Emaswati who need food aid are assisted. The Prime Minister was speaking at Kobuta constituency where over 100 senior citizens received food parcels. Dlamini was represented by the Deputy Prime Minister, Senator Themba Masuku.
When the 11th Parliament resumed parliamentary business, they elected a committee that will be responsible for ensuring that elderly people who need food assistance and houses are helped in all the 59 constituencies of the kingdom. On Monday, over 100 elderly people under Kobota constituency received food parcels from the Parliament Elderly Housing Committee. Speaking on behalf of the Prime Minister Ambrose Dlamini was the Deputy Prime Minister Senator Themba Masuku, who said government has a policy that seeks to ensure that as the country develops, nobody is left behind.
Nasi sathuthuka kuyiwa kuleli phupho la 2022 akufanele ukuthi kube nalinye liswati lelitawusala emuva. Uthi lo mgomo leave no one behind. Wonke umuntu nakusathuthuka akuthuthuke kuyiwe phambili njengaloku kubonakala nakwakhiwa letindlu kwentelwa kona ukuthi sonke sithi nasithuthuka siya 2022 sibe sikhona la silala khona etindlini. Kumcoka ukuthi sinake lokuthi umgomo webuholi balelive kubanakelela abantu labadzala. Lokhu kwengeta kulo mbono lowo kangangokuthi abantu abadzala siyesifuna kubakhumbuta onke malanga ukuthi nasawufika ku60 uyaya emtholampilo wahulumende esibhedlela sahulumende ungakhiphi ngisho peni lomnyama khwishi.
Kobota Member of Parliament Mlamul Mabuza says they will continue to assist elderly people with food since the outbreak of COVID-19 has brought numerous challenges in the kingdom.
Namuhla sitebo gogola bang 170 ngama food parcel lokufaka ikhathi impuphu, shukela, cooking oil, nensipho yogeza nosipho yogeza tandla nemakhabishi.
Through Gogo Shabangu, the senior citizens expressed their gratitude to government and parliament for the food parcels. Chiefs under Kobota constituency beseeched government to improve the road because its current state hinders development in the area. Even the police find it hard to police certain places. Through the food aid program, government has assisted over 300,000 Maswati with food. For Eswatini TV News, I am LinkedIn Gule, Kobota.
Prime Minister Ambrose Dlamini says government, with the assistance of Parliament, will ensure that senior citizens who need shelter are afforded with such. The Prime Minister was speaking at Kobota constituency during a sword-cutting ceremony which marks the beginning of the construction of a house for Mazambane Matebula. The Prime Minister was represented by the Deputy Prime Minister, Senator Themba Masuku.
The Parliament Elderly Housing Committee continues to bring hope and smile to elderly people countrywide who need shelter as a matter of urgency. On Monday, the committee, alongside the Deputy Prime Minister Senator Themba Masuku, who was representing the Prime Minister Ambrose Dlamini, visited Kobota constituency to start a project where they'll be building a house for Mazambane Matebula. Making his remarks on behalf of the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister Themba Masuku reaffirmed government's commitment to improve the livelihoods of the elderly in the kingdom.
Seliqalile ke indlu khona butse bdute nje stabe sesikhona stokuniketa khiyatayo lendlu. Konke ke lolu sekwentiwe la namhlanje kukhombisa kona ukuthi lo msebenzi welive wokunakelela abantu labadzala wekunakelela labo labangakhona uyachubeka njengekusho kwengwenyama ukuthi abanakelelwe bonke abantu kubete losala ngemuva.
Mazambane Matebula thanked their majesties for sacrificing a lot so that people like him can benefit.
Silo sikhulu umbuye meswazi wena umhle kakhulu. Siyabonga mina ngwaka Matebula ngisuka leshiselweni ngokuba lapha nje kanyake. Loku ngibona nje ungaka lapha silo semeswazi ngibonga ngathi ungaba khona na bonke abanye abantu abanjengami bayethe wena phakathi.
Such efforts are in line with Sustainable Goal number 1, which speaks to poverty alleviation. During the opening of the first session of the 11th Parliament, His Majesty announced that government will increase elderly grants. Indeed, that happened. For Eswatini TV News, I am LinkedIn Gule, Kobota.
Former Minister of Public Works and Transport Ntuthuko Dlamini has handed himself over to the police after allegedly shooting 3 men. This was disclosed by Chief Police Information and Communications Officer Pindile Vilagati.
The former Minister of Public Works and Transport Ntuthuko Dlamini is alleged to have shot 3 men at Punya at around 11 in the morning on Monday and later surrendered himself to the Punya police. The Chief Police Information and Communications Officer, Superintendent Pindile Vilagati, confirmed the incident.
Khona umbiko lesisebenzako kulandzela ukuthi kube nemadvodza lamatsatfu le agcine alimala khona endzaweni yasePunya. Ngemva ke kungaboni ngaso linye kanye naye lo wakwaba ngumhlonishwa ngenhlanhla lembi ke kuloko kuhishana lokubekhona ugcine vele lababili sebashiya emhlabeni munye ke uselashwa lapha ukuthunyiswa esibhedlela saseMangayane la elashwa khona.
She says police investigations are ongoing, but they can confirm that one of those who have been shot is still fighting for his life at the Mangayane Government Hospital. She advises people who may have misunderstandings to come and resolve their differences at the police station rather than resolving to hating one another and committing such crimes. I am Kiani Msebi for Eswatini TV News with Temalang Dlamini, Epunya.
The Minister for Education, Lady Howard Mabuza, says government fully supports vocational and training institutions in the country and that students should refrain from the mentality that vocal training skills are for those who did not qualify for enrollment at university. The minister was speaking during a dialogue held between the country's youth and cabinet ministers led by the Prime Minister. The dialogue was facilitated by Junior Achievement Eswatini.
The Minister of Education had a meeting with pupils from different schools who were under the Junior Achievement Program, where the pupils raised, amongst other things, the need for government to end the stigma that exists that students who enroll at vocational institutions are those who have failed to qualify for tertiary institutions. A pupil from Mkletane High School asked the Minister of Education, Lady Howard, if government prioritizes technical, vocational and education training skills.
Now, as a youth, we suggest that, ladies and gentlemen, government should consider making technical and vocational subjects compulsory in all schools from the primary level, so as to curb the misconceptions that we've been having all along and sensitize everyone so that students can get support from their parents and excel in technical and vocational subjects.
Responding, the Minister of Education, Lady Howard, says they treat vocational institutions like any other tertiary and ask pupils to do away with the stigma that vocational training skills centers are for those who did not qualify for college or university.
The Minister of Education, through Exams Council, worked so hard to make sure that pre-voc subjects are accredited. And they have successfully done that. Cambridge will now accredit the pre-voc subjects. We also agree that there is great need to increase the number of TVET institutions in the country, because so far we only have 2, and those 2 cannot absorb all our learners.
It is within the Ministry of Education policy to increase the number of vocational training centers and engage the private sector to take the lead and reduce unemployment rate amongst the youth. I am Kian Msibi for Eswatini TV News, Mbabane.
Government is in the process of improving its eGovernment system. Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade, who also acts as the Minister of Information, Communications and Technology, Mangoba Khumalo, says some of those who will benefit are government scholarship applicants.
The issue of improving the e-government system came about after a pupil informed government during a youth dialogue that they had challenges applying for government scholarships. The young person said pupils from schools in the rural areas had it tough as they have to travel to government offices to pick up and submit application forms.
We proposed the setting up of a scholarship fund which will operate as a separate entity from government. Now, this scholarship fund will handle the allocation of scholarships and the gathering of funds. Now, in terms of funding the so-called scholarship fund, We propose that a tax that is set aside specifically for scholarships be imposed on revenue-generating entities.
Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade, who also acts as the Minister of Information, Communications and Technology, Mancoba Khumalo says government is looking into how it can improve service delivery through e-government system. Khumalo says the issue of scholarship application process will also be addressed.
We are also working on government services. I think the example given by the last speaker around the cumbersome nature of just applying for a scholarship is just one example of many cumbersome processes that government services present. We are looking at rolling out an integrated e-government service where everything will be done digitally and online through an integrated system, so that whenever you have to access government services, you don't have to run from pillar to post.
Meanwhile, the minister also spoke to the issue of empowering young people, noting programs such as Junior Achievement as a good example. The minister also said such programs inculcate the culture of business in young people and also empowers them. For Eswatini TV News, Temgos Mavimbela with Sontom Langeni, Babane.
Pupils from different parts of the country have expressed their challenges with accessing lessons offered on radio and television, as some do not have television and radio sets at home. The pupils were speaking in a youth dialogue with the Prime Minister and different ministers in Manzini.
The outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic brought about changes on the normal way of life. The education sector is no exception. The Ministry of Education introduced lessons through television and radio since schools were temporarily closed due to the pandemic. During the dialogue between government and the youth, young people revealed challenges that pupils are faced with, particularly on the access of these gadgets.
Learners who come from destitute families don't have electricity, let alone a TV. To those that have a radio, because battery cells are expensive, the radio is only switched on in news hours. In addition, areas along the borders line, for example, Nsaliche, do not reception of EBIS. They have 100% reception of Ukhozi FM and Pongolo radio. So radio lessons for them are just hearsay. Also, families do not have school channel for access to Swazi TV because they prefer subscribing to South African DSTV since it is a variety of interesting programs.
When addressing these challenges, the Minister for Education, Lady Howard, says the ministry noted these challenges.
We have provided soft copies of all the lessons to all the schools so that the learners can access those from school. And we are going to go on doing such lessons on radio and TV. Those who are able to access them will go ahead and do that, but those who cannot, we will again make soft copies and send to the schools.
The United Nations presented a policy brief on education during the COVID-19 and beyond, which states that the COVID-19 pandemic has created the largest disruption of education systems in history, affecting nearly 1.6 billion learners in more than 190 countries and all continents. For Eswatini TV News, Sondomlangeni with Fabrice Musonera in Babane.
We will now take a look at the COVID-19 update from the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health would like to inform the public of the status of COVID-19 in Eswatini. A total of 300 results were received today, out of which 31 tested positive. The total number of COVID-19 confirmed cases to date is 4,884. Active cases are 730. Those that have recovered are 4,029. deaths are 94 and those that have been registered for care are 31. Looking at the cumulative confirmed cases by region, the Manzini region has recorded 2,228 cases, Hoho region has recorded 1,891 cases, Shiselweni region has recorded 409 cases, and the Lubombo region has recorded 356 cases of coronavirus. Let's continue with the news. After government announced a ban on the sale of alcohol, some people resorted to drinking home-brewed alcohol. Director of Health, Dr. Vusi Makakula, says people who drink this brew are in danger of getting illnesses which they might discover after years from now.
In June, Prime Minister Ambrose Dlamini announced a ban on the sale of alcohol for 2 months beginning in July. The Premier cited alcohol as contributing in the spread of COVID-19. On Saturday, the Prime Minister announced an extension of the ban on the sale of alcohol until the end of this month, where the decision might be reviewed. In light of this, some people have resorted to brewing their own alcoholic beverages using fruits. Director of Health in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Vusi Makakula, says this temporary joy people feel after imbibing in home-brewed alcohol will have future repercussions.
Into nje vele ngana standards kahle ingaba ingoti empilweni yami awuli nowanti nje siqala bese nginatha into lengasishona lokuthi kodwa lapha kwendeke njani.
Dr. Makakula says the dangers of these home-brewed beverages are also in that they have not been checked for quality and standards. He has warned that people should refrain from such beverages for the sake of their health. For Eswatini TV News, Temgos Mavimbela with Fabrice Msonera, Mbabane.
Let's take a look at our sports news. Mbombela United star Justice Figueiredo says if his club finally gets relegated to the ABC Matapa League, he'll be looking to get a new club specifically under the ABSA Premiership League. Figueiredo says he has already been approached by some clubs in the ABSA League.
Following the announcement by the South Africa Football Association that Mbombela United that plays under the Glad Africa Championship League will be relegated after it was alleged that the club's player Sabina Ziniza had signed a contract with TS Sporting that also plays under the same league, which saw Mbombela United getting a deduction of 23 points, which will then see them playing in the ABC Matapa League from next season. Club star, who is now in the country where he is using Techball Sport to boost his fitness, Justice Figueiredo says he will be looking for a new club if the decision stands when Mbombela United will be relegated.
Yeah, it depends ukuthi lama offers amlengawo akuphi yabona, but ke bengasesifiso sami ukuthi ngiyehle nami e-third division because le level tabe nalo ibhola yaliyehla nase ama international players sekehla kadlala ku third division, so angiboni ukuthi kungaba kahle for mina ukuthi ngehle. Kwamanje kusedela ukufinaliziwa ukuthi i-team enda kanjani. Mbombela kodwa lesitshele kona thina, so simi ku stand by nje ukuthi bathini bathe batoshaye, so solo simile ukuthi batothini bona because kusedela basitshele kona at the moment bathi nje asimi iboss sathokhluma, so simile chairman kodwa longanani.
Yes. Figueiredo says as local players, they do feel sorry for their teammate Nzinisa, who is likely to spend 2 years without playing football.
Kubuhlungu for thina sonke because sesihlala nesikhathi esiningi phinde sidlala naye and kubuhlungu vele, but ke kusede iletha la sayitfolile yena simbuda thina ukuthi iletha sayitfolile ukuthi ayibathi vele umile solo simala ku social media nje ukuthi utawuba umsuspenda 2 years, but kusede ngilabo mtshele yona ina direct.
ABSA Premiership action will be resuming on the 9th of October this year. Figueiredo hopes by then his future will be certain. For Eswatini TV Sports, Fabrice Msonera, Mbabane.
Eswatini, that is all the news that we had for you tonight. But before we wrap up, let's take a quick recap of the headlines. The Matapa Evangelical Church has donated medical supplies and groceries to Eswatini Hospice at Home. Prime Minister Ambrose Lamini says government, with the assistance of Parliament, will ensure that senior citizens who need shelter are afforded such. Former Minister of Public Works and Transport Ntuthuko Dlamini has handed himself over to the police after allegedly shooting 3 men. And that is all the news we had for you tonight. Up next is the weather forecast. Good night and God bless.